A rather more successful employment of this practice, it appears, was the 16-year-old Mary Anderson's debut as Juliet with Bernard Macaulay's company in Louisville, Kentucky in 1875.
A rehearsal, the only one, was called for the next morning. I found myself for the first time upon the stage. How strange and dreamlike it seemed, that empty theater, lighted only here and there by the faint glimmer of the gray day without, bereft of all the eager faces it had always been peopled with. And the stage! How dismal it was with the noisy patter of the rain on its tin roof, a small gas jet burning in the center, throwing a dingy light on the men and women. They did not relish the extra rehearsal, gloomily standing in the wings. On seeing me, all looked surprised. Some made remarks in whispers, which I felt to be unkind. Others laughed audibly. Scarcely 16, my hair in a long braid, my frock reaching to my boot tops, tall, shy, and awkward, I may have given them cause for merriment. But it was cruel, I thought. It was as cruel, I thought, as underbred, to make no effort to conceal their mirth at my expense. However, their rudeness was salutary in its effect, putting me on my mettle before the work began. The stage manager clapped his hands for Act 1. The actors immediately rattled off their lines, making crosses and sweeps down the stage quite different from the business I had arranged. I was bewildered and asked them to go through the play as they proposed doing it at night, and to allow me, at least in my own scenes, to follow the only business I knew. "Oh, bother," said one of the actors, who did not remark the tall figure of the manager at the back of the dark theater. "I acted in this play before you were born, and I, for one, don't mean to change what I have always done." To have all I had arranged thus upset in every detail threw me out so hopelessly that I was unable to go on with the rehearsal. Mr. Macaulay's voice put an end to the awkward pause, saying that he had not thought it necessary to ask them, as old actors, to do all in their power to aid a girl who was then standing on the stage for the very first time. And he added, "I must request now that you follow the business she knows, and that you try to be obliging." The sulkiness that followed this rebuke was damping, but the rehearsal proceeded more smoothly. At last the rehearsal, so full of torture and disappointment to me, came to an end. There had been so many humiliations, such cold, cruel treatment from nearly all the actors, that I dreaded the coming of Saturday, when I should have to encounter their sneering faces again. Still, it did come, and my mother and I found ourselves walking to the theater in the crisp air of a starry winter night. After the sad experience of the day before, I was hardly hopeful enough to be nervous. The borrowed robes were quickly donned. They fitted well, with the exception of the white satin train, the first I'd ever worn, which threatened every moment to upset me. The art of makeup was unknown to me, and ornaments I had none. When Juliet was called to await her cue, what a transformation in the scene! The actors, in velvets and brocades, were gay and excited. Some of them even deigned to give me a condescending nod, while the gloomy stage of the day before was flooded with light, life, and animation. I became feverishly anxious to begin. It was hard to stand still while waiting for the word. At last it came. "What ladybird? God forbid! Where's this girl? What Juliet?" And in a flash I was on the stage, conscious only of a wall of yellow light before me and a burst of prolonged applause. Curiosity had crowded the house. "Why, it's little Mamie Anderson. How strange. It's only a few months ago since I saw her rolling a hoop," etc., were some of the many remarks which, I was afterwards told, ran through the audience. The early, lighter scenes being uncongenial, I hurried through as quickly as possible. Even these were well received by the indulgent audience. But there was enthusiasm in the house when the tragic parts were reached. Flowers and recalls were the order of the evening. While things were so smiling before, they were less satisfactory behind the curtain. The artist who had acted in the play before my birth forgot his words, and I had to prompt him in two important scenes. In the last act, the lamp that hangs above Juliet as she lies in the tomb fell and burned my hands and dress badly, And to make matters worse, Romeo forgot the dagger with which Juliet was to kill herself, and that unfortunate young person had, in desperation, to dispatch herself with a hairpin. But in spite of much disillusion, a burned hand and arm, and several other accidents, the night was full of success, and I knew that my stage career had begun in earnest.